Yeah, okay. Now I have sound. I didn't have sound before. I'm guessing. Because the camera... Yes. Is this camera? What's up, camera? Okay. Yeah, sure. Looks okay. And... Yep. Alright. Could probably hear that rain. I think I have like my gain turned up or something. No? Oh, I do have that all the way turned up. Hello, hello? That's probably good. Hello, hello? Yeah, that's probably good. Okay. Now I got all these. I don't need any of those. Streaming now. All right, and what are we gonna do? Oh yeah, I just wanted to test Twitch. Twitch.tv. Am I actually streaming?
I am drawn to capturing those intimate moments, this connectedness with their family and the love that they felt when they were fully present with their children. Felt when they were fully present with their children.
Yuck.
Felt when they...
Okay, so I am streaming there. And am I streaming on YouTube? I think I am. I don't know where. I think I'm streaming on YouTube. Am I not? I thought I was. If I'm not, then I'm not, and that's fine. I just thought that I was. Customize channel, manage video, your videos. Live. I don't think I am. I think I'm... Yeah, I don't think I'm streaming on YouTube. I thought I was. I have like a thing on OBS that is supposed to be like, whatever. Like a multi-stream thingy. But it's okay. I'd like to know how to stream to both because I don't like... What's the word? Yeah, Twitch is really adsy, and I hate that. Alright. Let's see. Oh, wait, hold on a second. Okay, there's Trent. Alrighty. Let's see. What am I doing? Hey, Trent, would you mind hopping in the voice channel on Discord? Would that be within your space? I don't know if you heard that. I'll ask again in a bit. I also think that I'm not set up. No, just our personal voice channel, just so you can kind of be like on chat, like voice chat availability, like for when I get lost and confused. Oh yeah, no problem, man. That is, yeah, I saw the, your progress looks great. Like your new recordings look awesome. We can post them somewhere. Reddit. Still getting situated. Yeah, I'll post the link to your latest thing here. Cause yeah, it looks really good. It's nice to see the progress. Oh, who's that? Oh, that's just me pinging myself. Inconvenient. Okay. Yeah, and I think that like, so thinking of like things to go from here. So your question of like, I want to see like what. So you have this kind of research question of being interested in a wrist shot, which is, I assume, like a hockey thing. Yeah, so you could get another camera, but I think you can still do a lot with just the 3. And if you run out of like open ports on your computer, you might like having something stable that works is good. And then once you're there, you can either try to do something with it or try to expand it, and both are good options. There's Trent. Hello. Are you? I don't think I can hear you. 1 second. Let me set up my audio. Excuse me, other people. Say words. Hello? No? Hello? 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 There we go. Hey, you there, Trent?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, now I got you.
Yeah. Your audio to me is like weird still.
Through Discord or through
Discord? I'm also like with the time delay. I'm going to mute the stream because I won't be able to like.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I guess other people let me know if I'm like echoing or something. But yeah, Mike. So like your main research question of like wanting to understand like a particular type of hockey shop is a good one. However, it's a challenging research question because it's like, oh, I'm trying to differentiate like this one set of snapshots from like an almost identical set of snapshots that are good. So that's like a really difficult thing to differentiate. So to help but it's a good question that you can sort of move towards over time. And the thing to do is like, so thinking about that long-term goal of like understanding like a good wrist shot, you can start just trying to understand wrist shots at all. Like, what do they look like? Like if you were to do like, 10 or so, like just like recordings like right on top of each other, and accepting that like I'm going to be describing stuff that's going to be hard to do with the current setup, but we're working towards later. But like, so if you were to record like a dozen shots, sort of trying to keep them all like straight down the center as good as possible, and you overlaid them on top of each other, like what parts would like, which parts would have more variability than others? You can look at things like that. You can look at like, oh, I'm gonna shoot to the left of the room and I'm gonna shoot to the right of the room, and then compare those and see how those differentiate from each other. And then once you have like a better understanding of like the underlying like nature of a wrist snapshot or wrist shot or whatever you called it, that's now a much better place to start asking questions of like, okay, within this thing that I now understand of like the movements involved with this particular type of hockey shot, what are now the subtle features of that will help me understand like what makes one good or bad, or what makes one like accurate or not accurate. So that if I were to be designing like a research question around what you've done so far, that would be the place I would go next. Would be trying to start collecting like a bunch of repetitions of just like a straight down the middle, like clean as you can get it, slap shot, and then just like look at those movements compared to each other, and start to kind of like see if there's any features of note. Anyway, that's my quick thoughts. And so you could do that, or you could add more cameras, or you could do both. All good options. Because there's also anyways. Okay, I'm gonna start. We have an agenda today of sorts. Things I want to talk about that I have done. I've done some work with freemocap over the weekend. Hit some interesting milestones that are worth discussing.
Before you begin, could you figure out which mic is going to Discord? The audio coming through is like. It just sounds like you're far away.
You're
like
probably,
it's like one of your
probably
webcam
one of my
mics
cameras
or something.
Yeah. Thank you. Is that better? Discord. No. Hello?
Hello? Hello? Hello?
How's that? Is that better?
Yeah, it's a lot better. I can hear you way better now.
Yeah, turns out having 5 webcams attached to your computer confuses computers sometimes.
Computer is good, not computer fault.
Computer's doing its best. Okay. So let me look on the announcements of Discord and say, okay, so we have, so we have a new roadmap. A new release for v0.0.53. We have, oh yeah, a new Blender, who's it? A new Blender output option via CG Tinker at CG Tinker, who he's active on his GitHub, but I don't see him active anywhere else. So I've tried to contact him. CG Tinker's BlendArMocap. I don't know why people insist on naming things that are misspellings, that are phonetic misspellings of common words. Like, it's Blender and it's AR, augmented reality, I guess, but it's like I have to say, like, hey, it's Blendar, spelled with an AR. Like, if I have to say how it's spelled, it's not a good name. But it is a cool program that does cool stuff, so we like that. So yeah, we got that, and we got this new sort of proof of concept GUI. New proof of concept PyQt graph GUI, which is not like a GUI that's going to be like sticking around, but it's a proof of concept. Like it's a step along the path towards like the next iteration of things, and it will probably become functional pretty quickly. Like functional meaning like it can do the things that the current, like the pre-alpha version does. It'll probably get to that point relatively soon, but it will be, well, it'll be an interesting trade-off time between like where we are now, like where there's like the pre-alpha version that can do like a fair amount of stuff, okay, but like it's like really hard to extend and hard to maintain and debug. And then we have this alpha version that's coming up that currently cannot do all the things that the pre-alpha version can, but it is sort of being coded in such a way to be better for like long-term development and growth. So it's kind of an awkward spot because there's people like Mike who are using the pre-alpha version, and sort of like people who are like having trouble and trying to like, oh, I'm trying to extend this, and having blah blah. And it's kind of like, well, like we're not really trying to like develop too hard on that on the old version of the code right now because we're working on the new version. But it's sort of, I realize that there's kind of like from the outside it might look like there's no development really happening because the stuff that you're using doesn't like the thing that we have been using as free mocap hasn't changed much in the past couple months, at least not relative to the work that's being put into it. So I wanted to kind of show off and highlight some of the things that we've got, and we can go from there. Hey Trent,
yes,
something that you could do that'd be really helpful would be like putting timestamps in the chat.
In our chat.
Yeah, and just keeping track of kind of like roughly what time I'm starting to talk on these things. I'll try to remember too, but
it's like so timestamp like at 3:20 p.m.
Good question.
Because I don't have access to your timestamp.
Right, yeah, timestamp's not the right word. I guess tag. So like tag, like,
Oh, you mean in Twitch chat?
In Twitch chat, yeah.
Okay.
Because so what we're gonna want to do after this is done filming is like port it over to YouTube as like a channel. And I discovered that putting bookmarks into a YouTube video is as easy as having timestamps. I say like 3:12, like 3 minutes and 12 seconds in, title whatever, and then that will put the little break.
I do see the session timer at the top.
You do?
I do. It's in the top. I'm in mod view, so I can see it.
Do both, because like it's easy to check the chat later and do just search for like hashtags and stuff. So just do like hashtag like roadmap or something when we start talking about the roadmap, and we can find that afterwards. You can also write down the timestamp, and we can see if that lines up. But I don't want to like have that be the only record that we keep.
I'll write down like 3 things. I'll do like hashtag session time, real world time.
What a great thing to have assistance. Thanks for being around. Okay. So, let's talk about the new roadmap. Actually, let's talk about the release first. No, I lied. Let's talk about the roadmap first. So the GitHub. No, is it freemocap? So I put just basically like a big old brain dump. Could you mind your mic though, Trent? Because every time you type something, I hear like a click.
Yeah, I'll read it.
It's like right when I'm trying like getting into it, it's like click. Oh geez, it's like anti-Pavlov. But let's see. Right. So there, as we're sort of getting towards the end of this pre-alpha phase, which like the past 6 months have been kind of like expert user time in preparation for like the next phase. People are starting to come to use the project. People are starting to like, issues are beginning to multiply and, things like that. And so we're starting to kind of try to think about how to like set up the governance of freemocap project to be amenable to long-term growth. I was just talking to one of the maintainers, the central maintainer of PyQt Graph, and he was talking about the original creator like burnt out and like handed off support to other people of the group, and they don't have a lot of good structure. And we want to not do that. So a big part of that is sort of setting up like a roadmap about what we're doing and what the plans are, and being clear about what the work is to be done, so that and then have like a contribution guideline form, which we don't really have one. I think we might have technically something in here, but let's see. Deep lab cut, GitHub. So for example, like a contributing statement of like how to make contributions and setting up automatic testing and stuff like that. We're going to want to do that eventually. Right now in the pre-alpha version, like the code is too like interconnected to really be to be like able to like welcome outside assistance. But that's one of the big things in the alpha iteration, is making sure that the code is written in such a way that it's sort of possible for people to help from the outside, without having to need like a bunch of hand holding to like explain like, oh, you need this to do that, and then this variable does that, and this function like this, but not over there. Like the more of those little like twisty turnies in the code that there are, the harder it is to onboard someone into working on it. So anyway, so this is someone working with a new backlog. There's kind of just a brain dump. It's if you go to the main GitHub repository, and then click on projects, and then freemocap backlog, not old. I guess you can get rid of old, buy old. Click on backlog, and then that's the URL. I'm going to punch it into the chat. And here it is. It's based off of the GitHub beta projects, which seems to be sort of get bigger, which is like their new version of their project management stuff. This may not be the end all be all, but it's sort of one of them. So you've got the issues going on and people who've been assigned to it, status, priority, size of, sort of how much work you expect it to be, and then like tags and labels. The ones, with the green circle have issues associated with them. So like the PyQt Graph one has a little sample thing there. And these ones, like the sort of the gray circles, work hasn't started on them yet, so there's no issue associated with them, but there could be soon. You can view them as a board, sort of see what's going on here, check them out by priority, by size, and sort of like this one's specifically tagged to the GUI development. And that's how that works. So I think that'll be really helpful. Again, it's kind of, at this point, it feels like practice. I'm just playing with the mechanism, but as other people start, as the project becomes to expand and people start coming into it, especially as the code sort of moves into the next iteration, you can have, I could, take the time and sort of like spell out a particular feature. If someone says, hey, I really want your code to do this, that, the other thing. We could work together to sort of specify the needs as specifically as we need to, and then put it on the issue, and then people from my lab, people from other labs, people from unknown origins can sort of find things and sort of just put the work in if they feel like doing that, and then contribute via forks and pull requests and things like that. So we'll see how it works out with this, and take it from there. That's all I have to say about the backlog. Do you have any thoughts on that, Trento?
No, I don't think so.
Cool. I gave this one to Mike. He said he wanted it. I think he can do it, but I think he's intimidated at the idea that he knows what he's doing. Let's see. Okay, next thing. Oh yeah, next thing is the release. So the new release is version 0.0.53. It's still kind of the same version of, actually let me pull up, I should just be pulling up this whole thing. So this is the announcement on the announcement of the freemocap server, and we'll be talking about the roadmap, and now we're talking about the release. So this is another version of the again, that pre-alpha version. The main things that happened here, there was that protobuf bug that popped up that people were noticing, where protobuf, whatever that is, incremented their version to 3.20, and something about that new version was not compatible with something that we were doing. I saw a couple other projects get dinged by that. So we just pinned protobuf version 3.19, and that fixes that problem. The other thing is the ability, this is something people have been asking for a while. We added the ability to reuse a previous calibration, so you don't have to calibrate every single time, which is certainly a benefit. So like the current workflow has always been like, turn the camera on, swing the Taruko board around, and then do your thing and then go. So you're calibrating and doing the recording at the same time, which is, again, kind of been helpful for like debugging and figuring how things work, but it's not really a viable workflow for like recording motion capture data. So now if you can record a session and do the calibration like normal, let that calibrate, let it get to the point where it gets past like stage 3 and it's past the yellow text in the terminal and onto the blue text. And then you can cut it out and then run it again, and then in the run me just put the use previous calibration equals true, and it will find that previous calibration and use that for your new camera. So as long as you haven't moved your cameras, it should still work. Now if you'll notice, that is kind of, so I think that this is like an example of like the reason why we haven't been developing on the pre-alpha version, because that is a very useful functionality and a very useful upgrade to the workflow, but obviously that's like, it's like a little bit clanky, and now this run me function that runs everything is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger and taking more and more and more of these keyword arguments, which is like basically means that it's going to become impossible to maintain this thing. It kind of already is impossible. It's like, not impossible, it's very difficult to like add new functionality to this. So we included that because it's very useful, and for people out there who are recording stuff from freemocap, you now can just basically go out there, do a calibration session, and then as long as your cameras don't move, you can record sessions one after the other and just keep that use previous calibration equals true, and then save stuff like that. And then just hold on and then sort of like in the new version will have functionality that's sort of more like modern, like sort of like a checkbox that says use previous calibration, or it will just automatically detect the previous calibration. We already have functionality to do that stuff with the new code. But anyways, but that's their 0.0.0.53. I don't want to say that's the last of the pre-alpha versions, because I think there might be one incoming that will automatically put the skeleton on the origin, like detect where the skeleton, like just put the skeleton's feet on the ground on the origin, which is another important upgrade. It'll probably be controlled through another one of these like keyword arguments in the RunMe, but something like that will port over to the alpha version, because the basic mathematics and sort of methods used to do that alignment will be needed for the next iteration as well. So yeah. Again, this is also for the people who are currently using freemocap, and less relevant for people who are kind of just watching the project and waiting for like a usable, user-friendly version to pop up. Okay, that's all I have to say about that. Any thoughts, Mr. Trent?
No, I think you're good.
Cool. Doing over here. Sorry, 1 second. No, I don't mind. Okay. Now the next one is the new Blender functionality. So for this, people have in the freemocap discussion channel of the Discord server, people have had a lot of sort of, I think, very fruitful conversations about the various ways that the current method for the Blender output from freemocap is like not suited for a lot of purposes. Oh, hey Marcus, yeah, I'll just start over. So I started by not having my microphone working, and then I figured out how the microphone works. And no, I'm kidding. Good to see you here. I'm just going over the various things that I talked about in the announcement on the Discord server, and currently just getting into the new Blender output, which is a good place to be. So yeah, so a lot of people have been discussing, possibly Marcus has been discussing, I'm not sure, the various ways that the current like use Blender equals true output, like the automatically generated Blender file, is like not well suited for doing animation, which makes sense because I made it and I don't know how animation works. It was just kind of designed to be it was designed as a proof of concept to just kind of like see if we can get all the relevant freemocap data into Blender. Mostly for my purpose is just to have something to visualize, and also to the goal, which was very successful, I should add, would be to do something that gets the data into a format that the animation community who's been sort of interested in this project can see, and then be like, oh, you did that all wrong. You should do it like this instead. Because, I'm not an animator, and I don't really know how animation works, but the animation community does. So like you kind of like I shoved it into a Blender scene as in whatever method I could find, using this Blender mega script, this absurd like 1,000-line long script to get things into a Blender scene, and so that way now people who have an expertise in that area can look at it and be like, oh, now I have specific comments on the things that should and should not be done in that way. And it was good. People were very helpful in that respect. And one of the things that came out of that was a reference to CG Tinker's it's BlendArMocap, which we can always...
Is it supposed to be like AR, like augmented reality?
Yeah, so CG Tinker is an interesting fellow. And I think they're European, some kind. I want to say German, but I don't know the accents enough to say. And they have a couple things, and one of them is like an AR kit. So, the terms like VR, AR, XR, like they're never really fully defined. And I think he's considering the use of MediaPipe as an augmented reality thing, which like I guess, because it's like drawing on an image, but like I think it's, definitions are complicated. But he has this what's it called, add-on called BlendArMocap that uses basically MediaPipe's 2D version. Okay, play, but don't make any sound.
When you are done with detecting...
So it uses MediaPipe's 2D tracking method from a single camera, just like either like a webcam attached to your computer or a movie file, and then it scans that image, that two-dimensional image, through MediaPipe, and then connects it to a Rigify rig using drivers, as opposed to what I was doing, which is a much more like brute force, like just like move the bones around with these constraints. So this is a more elegant method that uses like the controllers that are sort of built into Rigify. And the thing is that he's doing 2D from 3D, so 3D from 2D. So he's using the MediaPipe will give you a 3D estimate from the 2D image. It's just not a good estimate. So he's feeding that data in here, just sort of like using their 3D data as it's presented, but it's just, and it does a decently good job, but the problem is that the 3D data is not reliable. So it's sort of, you get like, there's limitations to what you can do. So I basically just went in there and hijacked, I found the place in the code where the MediaPipe data was getting fed into Blender, and then I just hijacked it and then put my own code to add like, from his little like detection or whatever, the detection option now has one called freemocap, and I will show you what that looks like if I can. I think I can. I forgot how that works. Right. Oh, right. I need to. Okay. So now we're doing this. What do we call that? I think it's this one. Yes. So this is using Jacques-Luc's VS Code Blender connection protocol, which is complicated. Yeah, I'm the ads are awful. I think I might. I kind of want to like start to move more towards. I could move to like a YouTube more YouTube centric streaming, but like. I don't know. I think Twitch is like kind of got its own thing, but the ads are awful.
Wouldn't YouTube have ads too?
Does it?
I don't know. I've never watched streaming on YouTube, which is I think a reason maybe not to do it there.
That's
because
the problem.
I don't even know how it works.
It's like I stream on like if you stream like I'm happy to stream on Twitch and then also stream to YouTube. But
one thing to consider is you could stream to our personal Discord.
Yeah, but then you don't have
the freemocap Discord.
What's that?
Our freemocap Discord, we could stream there.
Yeah, but then that's not like it's not doing the work that Twitch needs to do. Like Twitch is like design is like
sure.
It brings people like, hey, I'm just like you don't really get much discovery, but people can click through from Twitter. Whereas if it's only streaming to Discord, then only people on Discord can see it. So there might be other types of conversations that could happen in that way, but. Like this is sort of like a one-to-many conversation that needs to kind of like blend over some of the boundaries.
Marcus says that YouTube does not monetize.
Yeah,
if you're not monetizing the videos, that it does not show ads. So
yeah.
Anyway, I've derailed, so we should keep going.
Yeah. Well, I also should be. We can also. It's a pin in the point that we should be trying to find ways to stream to YouTube as well, so that way if you can all stream to YouTube as well and see both chats at the same time through OBS. And I think it's possible, it just needs to be set up. Mm-hmm. Anyway, let's see here. So this is all. So I'm gonna run. This is nothing fancy. I'm just launching Blender through VS Code, again via Jacques-Luc's Blender. VS Code add-on. What's it called? It's Blender Development. It's called Blender Development, and it's okay. It's a little buggy, and unfortunately, it is not. He stopped supporting it, so it kind of is what it is. But it is a way to basically connect the debugger to So, right, okay, so this, how am I going to do this? So basically, okay, yeah, so if you were to want to run this, if you wanted to run this yourself, you could go to, so CJ Tinker's BlendArMocap, and then I have a fork, not freemocap. So, it's not through freemocap, it's through John Mathis. And there it is, and I'm gonna put that in the chat as well. Here you go, doink, there you go. And you were to go to code and download the zip, and then in Blender, control, open up the preferences, which I guess I should do that visually, edit, preferences, and then install that zip file that you loaded from GitHub, and you should see something that pops up on the sidebar here called BlendAr, and then this will look very, very similar to the standard one, except I have appended the freemocap mostly for my own, so I can keep track of which one's which. And then on the type here, the original one has stream and movie. Now there's also an option for freemocap. So you click on that, and then I think it's doing it. It automatically takes one of mine, but you click on this and just like select a session folder, like your favorite session folder. It doesn't matter. And so like if you have your freemocap data folder and you know, let's do something, I don't know, blah 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 blah. Let's do this one. This was the the recording that I did on live stream. No, BlendArMocap is a way to so you can, so it's we have built so over the weekend, this is like a new thing. It reads in the data from freemocap. So freemocap produces a session folder full of a bunch of different kinds of data. No Connect and PSYs, standard webcams only at the moment. We can do other cameras later, but raw cameras are the default for now. But non-lin, so in this folder, this is a freemocap session folder that I recorded previously. It's got synchronized videos, a bunch of various things, you know, this animation video output, and then importantly, it's got this media pipe skeleton 3D NumPy data. This is the data that we're going to be sort of funneling in to BlendArMocap to drive the Rigify skeleton, and that's basically how the thing works. So again, so from here, thanks for asking. Welcome to the channel. AKA gaming friend. Things like Connect, they're dedicated pieces of hardware that are, long story short, we're using raw webcams. It's better, I promise. Functionality for more dedicated hardware, like structured IR, like the Connect or Intel RealSense or like a LiDAR type of thing, will be built on top of this, but we're focusing on generic, sort of cheap as possible webcams for now, just to make sure that everything is like as free and open as possible. If you rely on dedicated pieces of hardware to do things like 3D calibration, then your methods won't work in the general case. So we are trying to build the general case first, and then if other people, that's like yeah, if someone else wants to put Connect support in there later, it can build on top of the current calibration structure. Anyways, thanks, Marcus. It was a fun exploration into someone else's code. It's a nice code base. The Cheeker did a nice job of keeping things clean. So it was a fun adventure in in basically doing of like digging through other people's of his code, and it was basically like, you know, doing things like finding the UI operator and can I do this? UI panels. There we go. Here's one. And then finding, it's like, oh, okay, cool. Like detection input style, movie, stream, freemocap. You guys probably can't read that. So you kind of, if I found this like, oh, here's like a drop down of a bunch of options. Let me look at the code. Like, oh, look, there's those options. And then I think, if I've done this right, I think if I put a breakpoint here, and then I put that in stream. So if I select stream, yeah, there you go. Now it will pause there. And so now you can basically step through with the debugger and sort of, so I was able to kind of just like trace the data through. And I know MediaPipe and OpenCV well enough at this point that it was easy for me to sort of like eyeball what the data was doing. And then I just basically found the place where the data was going in and then spoofed it. And said, okay, like it's the same structure of data, except ours is going to be cleaner because we're using a multi-camera solution. Let's continue, and then I think we're going to be good there. Okay, there we go. Okay. So get your free mocap, select your free mocap session, target holistic. I didn't do anything else. This is by no means like a finished product. This is like a proof of concept. So expect bugs and like broken paths and whatnot. Because I think if you select anything other than holistic here, it won't work. Because we're using the MediaPipe holistic solution, which comprises the pose, which is the body. It's not even bugs. It's like turtles. There's like whole turtles walking around in there. So there's the pose, which detects the body. I don't like that they call it pose because in many other contexts in camera and computer vision, pose refers to the camera's position. So to do a computer vision project that uses the term pose in a different way is confusing. So when it says pose, I always think body. So body, hands, and face is part of anyways. So holistic is all of them at once. It says experimental, so we select that. It says, speaking of bugs, it defaults to stop detection. So you have to click on that, and then I'm gonna pop this up so you can see the terminal. It doesn't have to be running through VS Code for this. It's just helpful if it is, because if it has like a bug, which certainly it probably does. So I have empty space on the screen, but that's fine. Hello, then Cryptor. Nice, the encryptor. I get you. Then Cryptor, the encryptor. Nice to hear you say hello. Okay, so now we're going to hit load free mocap data, and then it's going to run through that, and it's relatively slow. It's actually, I was sort of happy to discover, not happy, but I think that the free mocap Blender megascript loads the raw data faster than the CG Tinker. They do a thing where they load every marker's data per frame, and then they do the same thing because they load in the marker, the joint center. I always say marker because that's like the standard thing, but it's like specifically a marker less program. Crypto, we are working on free mocap. You can check it out here. And specifically, I'm working on this new Blender output that they put together based off somebody else's add-on. But yeah, so the method, yeah. It's one of the things about working in a bunch of different disciplines is that you encounter people using the same word in different ways because they're speaking to different communities. And so it's often kind of this like challenging thing of like, do I change it to something that I think is a better term, or do I keep using the terminology of the group that I'm interacting with? And the answer is, I don't know. It's challenging. So I try to do something that like, so like when I see, so like for example in the code, I don't like that MediaPipe calls it pose. I think they should call it body. But other people who are used to MediaPipe are expecting it to be called pose, and really all markerless tracking they call it pose. So and in my code I just call it like pose body or something like that, just to help the people who don't have that intuition, but also not confuse the people who do have the intuition. But yeah, so it's loading in the data. A little typo there, but this is basically loading in the marker, the joint trajectories as keyframed empties. So the joint, so like my shoulder has a position over time, and it's almost done. And once he has, again, like there's some subtle differences in what they're doing, what I did for them in the freemocap Blender megascript. And I'm not 100% sure of what those differences are, and like, are they doing things that are making it worse for us later? Are there things that should be changed under the hood that will make it more appropriate for what we're doing? Something, I don't know. So I submitted a pull request to this main repo and sort of asked for help. But so yeah, so this is what happens after the load freemocap data. And I'm gonna go slightly out of order here, and I'm gonna click this load synchronized videos, which will just make life easier. Because it will make it possible if I hit Z and then select material preview, we'll have the videos alongside, so we can there we go. So grab and go along Y. The encryptor, nothing is ever built from scratch. Everything is put together from other pieces, and freemocap was certainly put together from other pieces. The main heavy lifter, like it's using MediaPipe as like the core like skeleton tracker, but it's also using OpenCV for the camera interaction. It's using AnyPose for the camera calibration. It's using NumPy, SciPy, all these sort of different packages. But the main kind of like the most intense computation is being done by MediaPipe, which is it's an example. There are many things like MediaPipe, and the basic structure is things that read in raw images, detect a skeleton in 2D on that image, and then spit out the sort of those pixel estimates. Okay. Yeah. So let's see. So yeah. So here's all these vertex. You know, I don't really know about how all these things work, but let's see. Where are you? How do I turn you off? Turn off extras. Oh, need the extras. Relationship lines. Sure. Yes, a large portion of the fidelity is absolute. Like MediaPipe is definitely a bottleneck. It's used empties. Yes, MediaPipe is a nice one to use because it's made by Google, so it's very clean code. It's hardware agnostic. It's fast. But all these things are limited by a number of factors. One is just like the technology of the time. These are very, very new capacities that are like not at all mature. And also usually with this type of like machine learning based computer vision, there's really in most kind of computations, there's like an option to choose between like speed versus accuracy. Like, do you want it to run fast or do you want it to be accurate? In MediaPipe as an example, it's made by a corporate entity, Google. So they're like, oh, we want it to be run, we want it to be fast, we want it to be accurate. We want it to be fast more than we want it to be accurate. We want it to run on your phone and then your browser and yada yada. Because they're trying to get something that's sort of different from like, you know, a scientist like myself, who is more interested in accuracy. Yeah. Sorry, MediaPipe Vector 3 is trained on synthetic data too. I don't know if it's trained on synthetic data. It might be. I know it's trained on labeled data, but there's a whole depth. It's like Blaze G Hume, which is Cocoa. I don't know. You got to check it out. But yeah, anyways, MediaPipe. We're focusing on MediaPipe because it is easy to use, but the software is being designed to be agnostic to the actual tracking software that you're using. So later on, we can have things like checkbox, like, oh, which one do you want to use? Oh, I want to use media pipe. I want to use media pipe and OpenPose. I want to use like whatever like Lab is making, or they're like in their repository, and sort of like, so we're designing the software to be like, we're using media pipe now, but it's being structured in such a way that you can sort of slot different models in and out later. We're just kind of focusing on like that core pipeline right now. Media pipe is a big part of that. Okay, so I've clicked load freemocap data, and everybody's in there as empties. Noticing that like he's not, it's like at 0. I think it gets zeroed somehow, and there is a hand and a face. Oh, also it doesn't know that I have so many frames. So there's a hand and a face like on the origin. There's only one hand. I think I'm somehow missing the left hand. Like somehow that data is not getting loaded. And I'm not quite sure why, but we'll worry about that later. Yeah. So okay. And so now I'm gonna just click this bind animation to skeleton. This kind of circumvents all of this stuff down here in the sort of standard BlendArMocap workflow. After you've loaded in the data, you are then supposed to load in a rigify metahuman, and then generate a rig from it, and then like do something else, and then turn off this IK constraint or something like that. So this button just does all that stuff for you. So it just loads in it basically loads in a rigify human meta rig, does some little fiddly things behind the scenes, and then binds that data to the mark empties, basically spoofing this transfer animation function or button, and using the holistic, and it cycles through the hands, face, and body pose drivers one at a time. So again, it's just spoofing functionality of the other buttons, just sort of wrapped up into one. So if I click on that, let's see what happens. Where's the? Yeah. Oh yeah. So this is. Oh yeah. So there we go. And now let me delete this guy. He doesn't need to be there anymore. And that is. So this is the meta rig, this is a rigify rig, and this is about where my understanding of this ends. It's a little janky, like I said. I don't want to be mostly because I'm like covering half my body. Let's go back to the beginning, and it's got some things like it's snapping to 0 and it doesn't have empty frames. Let me turn on this. Makes things cleaner. I don't know what that is, but I saw like the deform layer. I don't know what any of these buttons are. This is again, this is getting below my depth in terms of animation stuff. But yeah, so the hands are certainly screwy. There's something going on with the animations, like they rotate around the wrist, and one of them isn't attached at all. The face, I don't really know much about how faces work, but it's theoretically is supposed to be bound. Yeah, so like here's a good example, right? So the right hand is getting the hand data, but the left hand is not. It's just rotating around. But I think this guy down here is. Let me see. Wait till I'm doing something different with both hands. Oh, do I not do? I was not smart enough to do different things with my hands. So that's my right hand. My left hand should be like this. Which it might be. I don't know. Anyway, so bone layers. Thanks, Marcus. I know it's like I'm learning things. Yeah. So there is hand data. So and like you can see, like sometimes it kind of like snaps to 0 when there's some tracker, when there's loss somewhere. But I think this is a good start because it is now, it's very similar to, actually, so if I can, let's see, Gen treadmill, free mocap data, test USD2, and then I think this is, I think this will load like a standard free mocap Blender output. Oh, it does, but it's this, I've already I've already done it up. Let's see, extras and relationship lines and show material preview and go. Yeah, so this one's been kind of dustied up a bit, but this is the standard output. And it does okay, but there's a lot of things that people have pointed out, like the fact that there's the back is like refused basically, and the viewport display in front, the head is not sufficiently boned, and because it's basically like I'm like dragging the bones along, like I'm setting the position, the head, like the tail and head of each bone on each frame, and so it looks okay if you just do that, but if you're trying to bind a mesh, it has problems. On the other hand, this one, although it clearly has issues, right? So like this is something else, like this is my knee marker, I guess, but the bone is down here. I think that there's like something just wrong with the I think there's something in his code. I think that the leg transfers stuff is buggy somehow. And like, yeah, and then one of the hands isn't connecting, but I think that how do I make it? Oh, I can go into pose mode. Pose mode. Like, I think that this is using sort of like more sophisticated like animation stuff. So I think it would be, I'm guessing that it would be worth the effort to kind of like continue along developing this path and basically just piggybacking on CG Tinker's methods to using drivers and whatnot, and sort of, and just figuring out whatever little dumb bugs are causing like the hands to not be connected properly or whatever, and hopefully we'll get something from there. And does that sound right? If any animators in the chat want to sound off on how this sounds and looks? I'm hoping that the CG Tinker will respond, because I've made a pull request. Oh, I should name it added. I added. There we go. Makes it, otherwise it makes it sound like I'm not asking him to do it. I've already done it. So there is a lot of IK involved in this. So that's kind of what I'm saying. So like all of these like colorful boxes and widgets and whatnot, those are generated by Rigify, which is Blender's kind of like built-in like rigging thing. And so these markers, like the raw free mocap data, is being used to drive things like, you know, so that right there that I've selected, you can see here is called, if you can't, I don't know if you can read that, but that's called the hand IK, the right hand IK. So basically if you grab that and move it around, the rest of the body moves with it. And so the free mocap data is being used to drive those drivers, as opposed to here where it's being used to drive the bones directly. And so this kind of looks okay, but when I gave it to the community of free mocap people, the animators were like, oh, we can't really use, this is nice, but we can't really use it. So Marcus and Nonlin both asked about using that Rigify rig. Once again, we do not have to use Rigify by any way, shape, or form. We are choosing to focus on Rigify as the first attempt because it's free and available built-in default in Blender, which is another free open source project. If there's other models that you like that you think we should focus on, I'm happy to do it. Like the Unreal MetaHuman is certainly on the list of things. Thanks, Marcus. I'm glad you're not complaining. But like often with these kinds of projects, you need to focus on one example of a thing before you try to sort of make it work for everything. So I've sort of in the same way that we kind of like chose MediaPipe as like, okay, this is the stand-in for any system functionality that takes in raw video and spits out pixel estimates. We're also kind of targeting Blender as a 3D animation software and Rigify as a human rig. We could be focusing on things like Unity or like Unreal or Maya, but we don't want to for a number of reasons, not the least of which being that we are a free open source project, and so we want to connect to the other free open source project. Both because it's like philosophically like aligned, but also because it's easier to interact with something like Blender because it's free and open source. You can dig into the guts very easily, and in doing so feels like you're building part of a community rather than just contributing to some other company's something or another. Unreal, I don't know about 4, but I know 5, which is the newer one. It is the terms like free open source. I don't think it fully aligns with like the Linux Foundation's like 4 freedoms of software. Like I think it is free. I think it is like free as if you don't have to pay for it, but I don't think it counts as like Libre because it's like there's a lot of limitations on what you can do with it. So I think it's certainly chill. We like Unreal, but I don't think it checks all 4 of the 4 freedom boxes from the Free Software Foundation, not the Linux Foundation. Free Software Foundation is the progenitors of GNU and Unix and Linux. But it's actually a fun little field trip worth looking into. Free software for freedoms. What is free software? 4 essential freedoms. The freedom to run the program as you wish for any purpose. I guess that's freedom 0. Freedom to study how the program works and change it so it does your computing as you wish. Access to source code is a precondition. Freedom to redistribute copies so you can help others. I don't think you can do that with Unreal. And freedom to distribute modified copies of your modified versions to others by you get the blah, blah, blah. So I think, yes, Marcus, I think that is correct. So it's like, I appreciate that they are as open as they are. I understand that for-profit corporations have constraints in the way that they support themselves, and being fully free and open source has its own challenges. So I'm happy that they are as open as they can be, but yeah, it's not technically a free open source software because it doesn't follow that. It's sort of there's a whole gradient of free open source, all the way from like I don't know, Linux to I don't know, like OS X or whatever, Mac. Nonlin asks a good question of preventing animators from using this professionally and working towards solving them. My current priorities with this. So I don't know if you were here when we were talking about the backlog, but so right now the main priorities of this are core pipeline, trying to get the core computations for any person to generate a high quality motion capture recording from raw webcams. and so the focus is on, you know, building the project, building the community, building the core computations and sort of the core workflows to generate what's effectively the raw data. Where the raw data here is, roughly speaking, like these like empties dots that come in. That's a nice little picture. Look at that. Epic. Look at Skelly. Look, he's beautiful. But extras, datos. Anyways, basically these orange dots, that's the raw data that's coming out from freemocap, and that's the focus is on making that raw data as quickly as robustly and user friendly and ways that are hardware agnostic, produce like research grade data, yada yada. So just again reiterating, the focus is on that sort of core processing pipeline from hi, I'm a random person who wants motion capture, to I am looking at high quality motion capture data. So given that, so what I'm trying to focus on is sort of like kind of what's being represented here, which is, you know, like my work and my like expertise is in going into like how to generate like basically this data. Like this is like a massive pile of data of the joint trajectories, and we're trying to build that. And then from that point, we want to build kind of like connection points from that raw data into forms that people like professional animators can use. And however, the problem is, like, not a problem, but like we have very limited effort on this side of the world, right? I'm a college professor and I've got like maybe like 4 or 5, you know, undergrad level folks, like, you know, doing work on this, but also like taking classes and stuff like that. So we just don't have that much available energy to devote towards like, hey, I would love to like put all my time into like making the animation output what it needs to be for everybody, but we can't focus on that because doing that means that we're not focusing on other stuff. Yeah, and so a part of the structure here, like the strategic structure of the freemocap project, is to try to maintain connections to various communities of people. So you have people like Marcus, who's been around for a while, who can say things like, oh, you know, I would really like it to come out in this data format. And he asks it in a very friendly and open way. It's not saying, I'm not demanding, I'm just saying this is what that would be nice for people like me. And I notice that and I say, oh, that's good to know. And now I start to kind of think about like what would be a way to do that. Like so for example, would it be like once we have cleaned up this sort of like freemocap to Blender's Rigify connection, possibly through BlendArMocap, and you have what's just now a nicely rigged Rigify skeleton. Hi, Mr. Squarepeg, speaking of people who've been around a while. But yeah, if we can get to the point where this, like the Rigify rig is fully animated, then any other projects we find that are designed to take Rigify rigs and put them into other, you know, like oh, here's a Rigify to Mixamo software, or here's a Rigify to GLTF software, you know, then we can sort of connect to those other projects from there. So that's kind of the strategic. So to go back to the original question, Nonlin, of like what the priorities are. The priorities are basically building conduits into different communities like professional animators, while recognizing that we don't have the expertise on our end or the time to really do that work directly, which is why, again, like sort of this phase of the project is really about sort of entering into that alpha phase, is about trying to sort of like solidify the freemocap community, really start, you know, like start building like documentation, tutorials, educational content, and having conversations with like people like CG Tinker or Marcus or Mr. Querpeg, like people from the sort of the community and adjacent communities that might be able to work together to sort of solve the problems like you're at, like to say like, oh, hey, like, you know, if you have like something that's like this, if you only had something that was just a little bit different, it'd be useful for me and other people like me, and just kind of like keeping track of those things as they emerge, put them on the roadmap as appropriate, have conversations within the community of people to sort of figure out priorities, and then take things from there. So, long story short, we're winging it, thinking on our feet. But yeah. So great. So yeah. So here's so again, this first pass at using BlendArMocap to connect raw free mocap data to a Rigify rig. Promising first steps. Definitely needs more work. And hopefully this is now, yeah, we'll see where it goes. Okay. I think, does anyone have anything else to say on this part of things before I move on to talking about this fun GUI?
Looks cool.
Thanks. It was a fun thing to do to distract myself from the world.
The world, yeah.
I found myself in a need to have something else to focus on over the weekend, and so I focused
Mr.
on...
Square Peg wants to see the GUI.
Mr. Square Peg wants to see the GUI. I also want to see the GUI. Okay, bye, BlendArMocap, spelled with an AR. I am impressed with your logical form, if not your title. And if anyone, like CG Tinker, if you are seeing this, please reach out in whatever format you can. Don't save that. Okay. So the GUI. So obviously we want a GUI. GUIs are really important, and things that run kind of like from source code or from command line like this are nice, but they're always going to be, people are going to be blocked from that. Like there's plenty of people who see that it's a GitHub pip install free mocap, looks easy to people that understand how code works, but to external people, that's Mount Everest. So we want something. The ultimate goal is to create a system that kind of like works at all levels, that you can run from as a pile of source code from the command line and through a fully featured GUI. And then ideally, the dream sort of design structure is designed to bring people to sort of always have like a friendly invitation to go a deeper level into the code. So if someone comes in, so I'm giving a presentation at a developmental neuroscience conference next week on this project, and developmental neuroscientists would really like to have a good markerless motion capture system because, you know, kids don't like to wear the suits and all that. Also, it's super cheap and yada yada. But you know, as a community, that's generally not. I think Marcus is being sarcastic now and then, but I appreciate the assist. Yeah, but people from that community might not be familiar with Python code. In fact, a lot of them are not. So the goal is to make a GUI that sort of like you can jump into as a novice, but that you can still, but sort of like is always kind of like saying, hey, if you like, just so you know, like you can look at this just as buttons. But when you're ready, there's a deeper level here. And I think that Blender is a really good... Blender and Unity both do that really well. I closed Blender. But like the way that Blender sort of like has the little like... the thing that says, oh, like, by the way, like you make a new monkey and it says like, oh, by the way, this is the Python command to do the thing you just did in the GUI. Just saying, you don't have to use it, but here it is. I think, and that's a really cool way to sort of like just give a little bit of like a plot hook. You know, right click it, and it's just like it says like, oh, like, you know, like it. It's always giving you that option to dig deeper. And Unity does a similar thing where like if you change something in the sidebar, like it highlights the script. So we're trying to work in that space. So the build for the GUI is step 0, I guess, would be write the code in like a nicely encapsulated like API format so that things can be sort of like basic functions of FreeMocap can be pulled apart like atomically, like part by part, and not have those sort of like complicated internal connections that our current code base does. And we've kind of we're getting some progress there. We're not done, but we're getting progress there. and then from there build a sort of like a Python-based GUI using PyQt and PyQt Graph. Just again keeping it in Python because I'm familiar with Python, but I don't know if I mentioned in this stream. I've been working with my friend Endurance Adehen, who is who's been contracting with freemocap and has been becoming really involved in freemocap, and he has 16 years experience working as a software developer in the tech industry, and is like his current job title like software architect and stuff like that. So he's been helping to build the new alpha version of the code at, like, up to industry standards, so it can build and grow in the future. And so now we're on this sort of like stage of like building this Qt Graph one, and then also building like a web app based like GUI using like basically like taking advantage of the browser and HTML, CSS, JavaScript sort of like web app stuff. And then once that exists, then we can port over to building like a standalone GUI in Electron, where Electron, I mean, that's what's being used to drive, OBS. It's what's behind Discord. It's what's behind Slack. It's a really Electron app. I don't know. It's a nice sort of functionality to build a GUI off of, and then it can also have like, yeah, it's behind almost like, it's like the reason why all the apps look the same these days is because they're all built on Electron. And then we can use Three.js to do like, so this is Three.js, which is a JavaScript library, and we can build stuff based off of this. I think that's what Rococo uses, and like, anyways. But in the meantime, sort of first step along this process is to just build something in PyQt, because keep it all sort of nice Python. Yeah, browser powerful basically is what I was like, and browser good. But I don't know how browser works, so I'm working in Python land. So I'm going to show you this sort of like this first pass at like proof of concept of the GUI. It doesn't work, just to be clear. Like, you cannot use this to produce like a full freemocap recording session, but you'll be able to see. Yeah, I also won't miss tkinter. It did the job at the time. So here we are in the code in freemocap. So the big secret is that all of the alpha work has been hiding in plain sight, which of course is not. I added this thing to the like the Discord. I added this little channel that just auto posts GitHub updates, which I've kind of liked this. I think this server does a little bit too much like red dot pinging, and we're gonna be figuring out how to do that, because I don't want to like spam everybody. But I think that just being able to like to know that it's visible when I'm doing work on the GitHub has felt like a nice like passive way to communicate that I'm working on stuff. And Aaron is too. But if you go to the John/alpha pipeline branch, click and go. So there is a nascent UI using something, but don't worry about it. But if you go to the source src folder, everything in here is sort of like alpha work, and there's a lot of stuff that's not going to survive, and like, things figuring things out. Oh, hey, Glitch Robot. We met in person. Yeah, we've been talking for a while, but it gets saved. You can check it out. Yeah, thanks, Marcus. I'm glad. Yeah, because like commit history, just kind of like things blur together, but you can kind of, I think when they're fed to you piece by piece, it's sort of easier to follow the narrative. And again, just making it clear, I just want people to know from the outside that like work is being done, even if it may not be stuff that is like directly applicable to you. And I'm starting to move towards a more open communication style. Anyways, okay, so to see the nascent GUI, oh yeah, right here, freemocap Qt GUI. So here's, first of all, here's the API, and here's the routes, and here's one called session, and here's session router, and these are this is probably, I think that this will technically create a free mocap session if you just run the session router as main, and you've got these routes and post routes, and again, my endurance is helping me out with this. This is sort of coding at this, like, this is getting into like a different level of coding. Like, this is no longer like I'm writing a script. It's like, this is like I am building a software architecture that is designed on based off industry standards and sort of this like depth of experience that endurance brings. It's awesome. I've been loving learning from him, because I'm just like getting better at sort of writing that kind of code, like the code that can scale. Not the current kind. Enterprise ready. So there's some things that are screwed up here, like some of the synchronization is not working as it should, and yada yada. But if you go from there, if you go to the freemocap Qt GUI, and then to freemocap Qt GUI, and I'll plop this in the chat as well. Doink. If you, not saying this is the cleanest in the world, but it's not the worst either. And then if you run this file as a main file, it'll work. It should work from there without other stuff. So I'm here in PyQt Graph. And so I'm going to navigate. No, sorry, not PyQt. This is PyCharm, which I'm now very pro PyCharm for Python. I've been using VS Code for a long time, but PyCharm is just better for Python. It just has a lot of really good functionality. So I will not explain myself. So let's close down all these guys. So without any further ado, so I right click this and you can say run or debug from here. This is in a Python 3.9 environment that's running based off the requirements in the requirements.txt file, which noticing that the requirements.txt file on, so this John Alpha branch is branched off of develop, not main. So there's different requirements in there. But there you go. So if you pip install requirements from there, then you should be able to run this. And then I run that, and that pops up here. And I think this will work. I don't know. Let's see. So I'm going to click. I'm going to run as a debugger. And yeah, so again, it's a proof of concept. I have not done any formatting. I haven't done any aligning. And also this is not necessarily the way it's going to be in the future, but this is the way it is now. And it kind of, so again, like a proof of concept type of thing. So right now you've got your session ID. Got to start somewhere. That's right. And again, kind of like, just to be clear, the idea here is like a gentle introduction. That's kind of the goal. It's like we want there to be as much functionality as you need, but we don't want people who are not tech heads to get like bonked away from it by too much complexity. That can happen a lot with a lot of different functions. Like Spider can do that. Like, you know, like if there's too many buttons, it's like, which button do I push? And like, you know, I don't want people to have to like wonder. So you start and just like here's it's kind of like there's kind of a vibe here that may not necessarily like maintain in this specific form, but kind of that idea of like a gentle introduction is important. But also like you also don't want to bonk out experts, so you need to have a way for it to show up, because like experts don't want to be like spoon-fed every time they do something, but so it's kind of a challenge there. But so the idea is to have this kind of like expanding GUI. So you select your session ID, boo boo boo, whatever, you can put whatever tab you want there. Blah. Oh, I think I'll call it Twitch 0 in case I make another one. And I click start new session, and it pops out this thing, and I can say detect available cameras. And right now I think it just looks for every attached camera. Oh, and then it reads stuff. There's a lot of logging now, and sort of, you're not going to see like any like there's a lot of work into the structuring of this thing, and like everything being sort of, you know, handled through these imports and these like named classes and sort of like type hints and things like that. So there's a lot of stuff under the hood that will be really important. So it has correctly detected that I have 3 cameras attached to my computer. I have 4 cameras attached to my computer. One is being used there, and the other one is I have basically 3 webcams. Oh, that I just broke because I pulled too hard on them. I have 3 webcams kind of rigidly attached to each other. So I basically have a way to test the calibration. Yeah. Marcus, you're seeing it. You're seeing it. And so you can, once it's detected, you can sort of have, per camera settings, which has been a thing for a while. You're like, oh, one of my cameras is darker than the others. Can I change it? It's like, nope, sorry. Can I change it now? No, still you can't, because like this does not actually attach to, there's no functionality. Like what you want is to be able to sort of set these numbers, or say don't use this camera at all. And then also have like any other number of things on here, but and then redetect cameras, and then use those settings. It currently doesn't do that. It's just loading. It's always loading from a default. But again, you can see the functionality there. And then over here, this is this is where it gets even jankier. So there's an option here to use previous calibration. And this is something I want to not how I want to do this exactly, but the idea is that you kind of, so you can't record a new session if you don't have a calibration. Actually, you can't. So you need to calibrate the session. Oh, did I just freeze? I did. Okay, I'm back. Something just killed my camera feed. Oh, it's still the wrong. Oh, that's the wrong one. And now I'm also washed out. Oh, that's weird. It got eternal thumbs up. Something about the way I was just asking it to create the cameras made who's it? Oh, is this OBS very upset? Okay, we'll just use that one. Okay. Oh, wait. Too many cameras. Where's that one? Why don't you see that one? Okay, let's unplug this one and plug in that one. I have too many cameras in my life. Let's see. I'm gonna delete you, and I'm gonna delete you too. Yes, I'm gonna delete you too. Okay, hi. Yeah. It's a lot of cameras. You have an unbelievable number of cameras in my life. Anyway, so yeah, over here, so you got these, and they'll have, so you got your default values. You can set them to whatever you want to be. It'll need to have some sort of way of detecting which are viable settings and things like that. And then let's say you tested, yeah, so then from there should be, I haven't added these options yet, and this button does nothing. But you need to have the option of recording a calibration session, like a Charuco board thing. Or if you don't want to use that, just use the previous calibration. Record a free mocap session, like here's my cameras, I'm going to do my thing. And then there needs to be another button here that says process session folder or something like that. For now, all it does, if I click this, it will pop out. Yeah. It's trying to detect. Ooh, is it going to be able to do that? Okay, well, I'm going to close this down. Goodbye. Thank you. Sorry for the struggles I gave to you. Poor computer. I realized that I only had, after all that fiddling, I only had one camera that was actually functional. So you can't calibrate with just one camera. You need two for triangulation. Okay, so now I'll run this again. Da-dong. And session ID is there. Start there, detect the cameras. I think we're probably also going to have a button that's called like punch it. It's just like default settings or previous settings, and it's like go straight through and start a new recording without having to do. Like I always get annoyed when there's like 5 steps in a row, and those steps are all just like click the buttons one after the other. It's like, well, like why doesn't the first button just click all 5 buttons? So I think you want to give people like all of the control that they want, but you also should give them the ability to just like skip past the stuff that they don't need to use their human brain to select every time. Okay, and now I think if I collect this, I think it'll just spawn the cameras. Yeah, so it's just going to spawn these cameras out here being, oh, is it? Okay, well, I don't know. It looks like there's some weird stuff happening there, but it detects that. And then I think I hit escape. Again, this stuff, you want it will be like part of the main window, but now it just spawns them independently. And then now it's running through that standard any pose calibration. Oh, the GUI is freezing while it's thinking because I don't have anything in there to have it not, was it deadlock or freeze? Because basically it is still doing the thing that it did when I clicked the record button. But now it has generated stuff. It now will default into something called freemocap data in your user folder. This is all of my little samples. This is the one I think we just did. 62722. Oh, the date is backwards. It should be year, month, day. Okay, we'll fix that. And then calibration videos. And we got these videos. And that's the video that was just me. And then now we also have timestamps from each one, both binary and human readable. The human readable doesn't have, it needs to have more labels, and I want to have like different columns for like counting up from 0 in seconds versus Unix time versus start time, like sort of different formats for the timestamp based on what people are looking for. Very easy to do, it just needs to be done. And again, like, you know, if there's one column in the CSV, you can put other columns in there too. And oh right, the other one is it's got this guy, which is the camera calibration. It's now set up that the camera 0 is at 0, 0, but it is not set up to cancel the rotation. So it's like I want it to be set up that the when you do a camera calibration, it calibrates the cameras come back with camera 0 at location 0, 0, 0 with rotation 0, 0, 0 and everything based off of that. Any pose currently does not do that. It gets bundle adjusted or something like blah blah blah. But I have it now set to the camera 0 starts at 0, but it's not. I have to cancel. I haven't canceled the rotation. And then camera 0, camera 1, because we only have 2 cameras right now. Here's session ID. Here's the Charuco square size metadata, because like people will often like right now I've noticed people come back and they say, oh, here's this recording. I'm like, oh, what setting did you put for the Charuco size? And they're like, oh, I don't remember, and we don't write it down, so there's no way to know. So just like recording some metadata and information about the Charuco board as defined. So like what are the parameters that went into defining that, so that way we can, Yeah, and so a lot of that, and like there's a lot of more. That's, you don't need that. Like a lot of logging and stuff like that happening, which again is sort of doesn't add much functionality for the user, but adds a lot in terms of like testability and extensibility and maintenance and all that kind of important stuff for the next phase of life in this project. And currently that's all that the function does. So it's supposed to detect that you've just run a calibration. Is this a written post or live? This is live. Just saying the words. I'm just sort of going through and chatting through. Hi, Mark of Argyle. Oh, hi, Thorn David. I haven't seen your name in a while. But yeah, so then I do this. I don't know what happens if I push this button. Let's push this button. I don't remember what I added there. Oh, also, the functionality now exists. All is pretty well. I mean, the world is broken, but freemocap is doing well. So which is what we got. It was very important to me that at some point in the not too distant future. Oh, what's up, Moa? Oh, Mark of Argyle. Ah, yeah, there you go. Nice to see you again with your expanded acronym. It's really important to me that this little logo, that I have like a Skelly logo pop up there. It bothers me that there should be a Skelly head on here, obviously. If you don't know who Skelly is, that's on you. This is Skelly. That's Skelly. Right, Skelly. Get out of here. There you go. Right, your face is too small. freemocap. That's Skelly. Skelly is friend to everybody. Doink, doink. And I don't know if I click this. I don't know what happens. I think. Oh, never mind. I did connect it to something. I connected it to that. Hello. This is another GUI thing that I made. That is kind of janky, and I think the timestamps don't. I think they're not synchronized, or not as synchronized as they should be. Is this written post or live? Now the program writes it while processing or after termination. I'm not sure what's being written. What's writing? What's about like the session ID? The session ID. If I can't. There was a timing thing. I'm not sure when you asked that question. But yeah. Anyways, so this is two cameras which are not synchronized. Oh, the configuration. It builds it. Everything gets built from the configuration. Everything gets built off of that session ID. So that's everything kind of gets generated from there. At some point there will be other little checkboxes and stuff like that. And the calibration is all built from scratch. It's based off of the Charuko board. And if you'll notice, look at that. Look at that little guy. Is that a live Charuko board? It is. Is it messed up somehow? It is. I think so. You can see. So first of all, it's only two cameras, so it's going to be a little bit blinky, no matter what. But I think that the desync means that it doesn't. There's something wrong with the reconstruction, but theoretically this so. Marcus got it. I've been talking a lot about sort of proofs of concept, and so what this is a proof of concept of is you can have a video stream that the raw images are processed live and then combined with the previous calibration to generate a 3D estimate. It's messed up in a number of important ways. Like there's some bug in the geometry or in the time synchronization there somewhere that needs to get fixed, but the pipeline from raw videos to a 3D reconstruction exists. And again, like I mentioned, so like media pipe is an example of a function that takes in raw images and spits out pixel estimates. The Charuko detection board that's looking for these like very simple corners is the same kind of function. So if this works, then the media pipe version should work as well. The problem is it doesn't work that well. I'll show you what it looks like. Basically, a lot of the work that we're doing with Endurance right now, on the Endurance, the software dev that we're working with, is on finding like the most efficient way to read from live webcams. Very challenging problem, it turns out. And so the way we're doing it here is using threading, and threading is nice because it's like easy to operate, and Python likes it and yada yada. But when you're running something on a thread, everything is running in its own process. So it's one big process on your CPU, and the threads kind of like take turns. And so you can have like things running on like 4 or 5 different threads, and they're all going to sort of like, they'll thread themselves together to process. But if one of the commands in one of those threads is blocking, so like say, oh, here's the raw image, detect the skeleton, that call takes 10 milliseconds to run, and while that's blocking, nothing else can operate. So running a bunch of heavy computations in threads is slow. So what you want to do is you want to split it into processes, but then if you're splitting things into processes, then communication between the processes has an extra has a time cost. So you have to do that. So people use sockets, which can be faster, or you can. But then and at some point we want to bring the GPU into this equation, which has its own sort of overhead. But the point is that yeah. So the point. So all that is to say that the current code that I'm going to show you. I'm going to turn on Tech Media Pipe. It's not going to look good at all. It's going to run very, very slowly, and the reconstruction is going to be pretty much completely broken. But those are all based off of problems. That's like, I know what those problems are. It's like, oh, it's like, at least I have a very reliable, I have a trustworthy list of probable suspects to why it's going to be running as badly as it does. But again, proof of concept. So I'm now going to rerun. Oh, actually going to do that? Yes. I'm going to rerun the GUI. The GUI, it's like it's everything's currently cobbled together from like halfway functional. Like it's again, it's all work in progress. I'm showing you my Scratchpad right now because I want to bring people involved, but I'm also like there's like a little bit of anxiety of being like, don't look too closely, like, oh, I didn't have a time to clean up. This is not the finished product. It never will be, but it represents good potential progress. What are we doing here? Okay, so in this function, which is too large of a function and should be broken up into other things and has other issues and doesn't synchronize and yada yada. Yeah, GPU is on the table for sure. If it was just me and my students, I'd be like, I don't know how to do it. But again, I have Endurance Adehan working on this case, and he knows how to do that stuff. It's just like it's on that list of things that's like, okay, when this becomes the bottleneck, that becomes the priority. And right now, we're having enough. There's enough work to be done just working the things on the CPU, and kind of keeping GPU support on the side, thinking like, okay, well, when it gets time to, like, when we really want to start pushing like real time, then maybe we need to start working on GPU, and then something blah blah blah. But for now, we're kind of focused on CPU. But I suspect that when we start looking at GPU, it will not be insurmountable. Okay. What am I doing? Oh, run the GUI. Run GUI. Oh, wait, something's frozen. Solid foundations means a solid house. Yes, indeed. And that's kind of been the mantra of the past. When I started originally using the term, like, oh, alpha phase, pre-alpha phase, like, I didn't really. Full confession, like, I didn't really mean it. I was kind of just like, oh yeah, and then we'll just call it alpha, and we'll just increment upwards, and we'll start working from there. But like, kind of like, like, as things, why can't I close this? as things started progressing and people started getting more and more interested in it, sort of like realizing that like the way that the software currently is in freemocap, it's just you can't. It's bad foundations. Like you can't. Yes, Marcus. It's like this project can't expand to where I want it to get to on the current code base, because we wrote this code base while we were learning stuff. Like I was learning Python and teaching my student how to write Python while we were doing it. And like, you know, Aaron Cherian did amazing work within those constraints. Something's frozen over here, sorry. But, you know, it just, you know, when you learn stuff in doing that kind of like, it's like, oh, if I had done it, if I'd known what I know now, I would have done it differently. And so it's been an interesting process of kind of like trying to do it on my own. It's like, oh, I'm just going to learn how to do it on my own. And be like, oh, wait, I really can't. And then kind of reaching out to my friend Endurance and saying, hey, like you're a professional, like, can you help out? And he was just kind of like, sure, I'll help out. And then he started having fun with it. And like now it's been longer than I would have wanted, longer than I would have thought it would take. But I think it's going to be very much worth it for the long-term health of this project. And Marcus, indeed, we are trying to find non-CUDA only solutions. That is, in fact, one of the main reasons why we're using MediaPipe right now, and because a lot of this, like a lot of the options out there, like are like OpenPose and whatnot, they're CUDA only, and if they have a CPU only version, it's incredibly slow. And so when we first started making freemocap stuff, it was using OpenPose. People were like, "Oh, I can't use it because I don't have CUDA." I don't have an NVIDIA graphics card. That's when one of the things that pushed us to switch to MediaPipe, even though MediaPipe's not quite as accurate as OpenPose. It's also an open license, a free open license, whereas OpenPose is not. But we sort of like okay, we want something that like whatever the base functionality of freemocap is, for it to be this sort of like universal design thing, it has to be as agnostic as possible about, you know, computer hardware. Like we can't have a system that's like, oh, it's a free open source motion capture for everybody, as long as everybody have like an NVIDIA graphics card. It's like, no, we don't want any name brands attached to this as a necessity. That's again someone asking about like Kinect or PSI or Intel RealSense or iPhone or any of these hardwares that would absolutely make this problem easier. We don't want to use those as a foundational aspect of the tool, because if we do, then you're locked in. Oh, that's good. I am looking forward to implementing it, hopefully. I'm looking forward to the new MediaPipe. So an inertial suit, it's like a Rococo suit or or Xsense or something like that. I have used those before. Interestingly, I don't think that those are like the long-term future for motion capture. They're just too much dedicated hardware, and like IM user, they're rough. There's challenges there. They've come really far. I think for your money, Rococo's the suit to go with. But they have drift, and they don't like metal, and there's limitations there. However, they're very good at some things and very bad at others. And so if you're an IMU inertial sensor, you have very high precision but very low accuracy. So like they have very precise measurements internally, but they drift, right? Whereas a camera-based system is going to be noisy, but it's not going to drift. So if you're detecting my shoulder, and they're expensive. But so imagine you're using cameras and you're detecting my shoulder, using like freemocap, MediaPipe, whatever. So that shoulder estimate's going to be jittering around because it's noisy measurement, but it's going to be jittering around my actual shoulder. That means it has low precision but high accuracy. Whereas a Rococo inertial suit, if you're looking at the shoulder's not going to be jittering because inertial sensors record at 100 plus frames per second with really high precision, but the shoulder is going to be drifting around. So what that means is that if you had a hybrid system, so if you were wearing an inertial suit while being tracked by something like freemocap channels, and then did a sensor fusion situation, you're in a space of like a Kalman filter, where you basically now have two sensors giving you estimates of the same thing, and the sensors have orthogonal noise patterns. So so basically, like the noise you get from freemocap is low precision, high accuracy. The noise you get from inertial suit is high precision, low accuracy. So if you combine the two, then you could get something that would be potentially like very professional grade stuff, and that could sort of, when we could have friends be friends. I've had like brief conversations with folks at Rococo about potentially developing a hybrid system, and I think that would be amazing. And it also it would be nice because like I don't want to feel like I'm competing with anybody. I'd rather just collaborate. And I'm not going to collaborate with like a for-profit markerless motion capture system because that's antithetical to my moral sense. But Rococo, they make hardware. So yeah, sure, sell your hardware, whatever. And so if they want to make like a plugin or something like that for their GUI to stream free mocap data and like build functionality to do like a hybrid system, like I'm down. And yeah, and then you have more tiers, exactly. So like someone comes in, they're like, hey, I'm just getting into motion capture. What's the entry point? I'm like, $30 worth of webcams and some free software. Cool. And then like they start working with that, they get the data, and then eventually like, oh, you know what? I'm running up to a point where the accuracy I'm getting is not what I need it to be. Okay, well now there's sort of like, you can step up your hardware. Like how much hardware do you want to throw at this problem to make it easier in the form of IMU suits or more cameras or better cameras, stuff like that. Slime VR. I'll look up Slime VR. What was I going to show you? Oh, I was going to show you the media pipe real time. Thanks for your interest, Nonland. We're thinking long term with this thing. This is not like a summer project. This is like a multi-year project. We're going big, going for the world. Oh yeah, I'm going to show you now. So detect available cameras, detecting 2 cameras. This is going to be really bad. Use the previous calibration and then record a motion capture session. And I just turned on the bool over here to detect the. Look how slow it is. You poor guy. Okay. And there. So there was something broken in the geometry. And I think I don't know what's going on. There's something. So let's see. I'm gonna move my left hand. Yeah, you can see that they're out of sync, and I don't know why. I have some suspicions about the specific problems with this version. But again, as a proof of concept, like there is now like a 3D media pipe skeleton is now being plotted in real time. It's just super slow and inaccurate, and the geometry is broken. But we'll get there. It represents progress. Thank you, Marcus. I've been stuffing this sausage casing for a long time. Oh, right. And also, yeah. Hello, Shadow. Oh, hey, Shadow. Did I get more press? I hope I got press. I like getting press. If you see me get press, let me know, because they don't always tell me. I have people sometimes. I've like some news organizations I have seen like they'll make some article about like stuff I'm doing, and then they'll like use my comments in various places as like answers to fake interview questions. Never like saying we interviewed them, but sort of like blah blah blah. Like they'll quote me as if I was talking. I don't know. So let me know if you ever see me having press. What was I going to be doing? Oh, right. So the other part of this GUI. Cool. Oh, UE5. We need to start like building some connection to Unreal is a very high priority. It needs to be done, and I think we're getting pretty close because it's such a dominant force right now, and I think that we can feed into it relatively easy. It's just, live link. That's the one. Yeah, it's I in the same way that I was able to dig in to the BlendArMocap. Who's it? I feel like UE5 probably has some similar places, like stuff the data in here and like plot the datos. Yeah. So now then it's so core stuff first. But I think part of the core stuff is like figuring out like which endpoints are worth targeting. And I think that's like Trent did that user survey. Yeah, so Shadow is so a lot of people are like working with Unreal, MetaHuman, stuff like that. So if we can make an output, like an output port, because like what I want to have is like now on this GUI here, you pop up the thing and it's ideally it doesn't pop up as like a standalone window. This window should be like connected to that window, and like you record your whatever, and then there's another button that's like process the data, and then little buttons that are things like open in Blender or open in UE5, and for now, just like while we're still viable real time is still on the way, and realistically, viable real time with this system might not be on the table with the current level of this technology. We are at the point now where we're limiting. This is just what a human can do with like a standard PC. And right now we can squeeze more performance out of this with like better code and smarter code, but like we're on the bleeding edge of markerless tracking, and like it may be that whoever we may need to wait for MediaPipe 2.0 to come out for viable real time to happen. But so right now it's sort of like still on this idea of like process it and then open the scene in Blender, or like another button that's like open the scene in Unreal. And then eventually what you would want is a button that's like stream to Blender or stream to Unreal. Then you could have like a real-time interactive thing. Yeah, so Nonlin, again, that's the same kind of idea of before, like we're a volumetric tracking object calibration. So like... So like this is like a stereo camera. It's not a Connect, it's just stereo, but there's a Connect, and then there's like LiDAR, which is what your iPhone uses, and sort of various ways. Oh, there's a donation button. There's a donation button on the website. Sorry to derail. Yeah, there you go. Donate. There you go. But I think there's been 2 people. I think we've received a grand total of $23 of donations right now, which is appreciated, but not going to pay a lot of salaries. we're funding. We look for funding July onward. We become funding phase. I forgot what I was saying. I spoke in circles for a while. Oh right, yeah, volumetric stuff, right? So various ways of RGBD is often a term that you get used where like this is an RGB camera, it gives you red, green, blue for every pixel. An RGBD camera gives you red, green, blue, and the depth. So you can get point clouds, you can get volumetrics, you can get scans and sort of things like this. This is one of those. And again, so like I mentioned before, there's a lot of those kinds of options that exist, but they all exist in the form of some piece of dedicated proprietary hardware, and so if we build the system to rely on that hardware, then we are now reliant on the company that makes it for us, and that's not the vibe. So people like to mention Connect. People talk about the Connect because it's been the only low-cost motion capture system that's been available for however many years. The Connect is deprecated. Microsoft stopped making them. They never released an SDK, and so we have to rely on like some random person's random, Qt GUI project to use the Connect at all. And so then they stopped using it. and so, you know, the other one's like Intel RealSense is like a nice structured IR camera, but then they just announced end of life for that. They have a LiDAR scan, and so they just announced end of life for that. So we can't focus. So I think all of those tools would make this project better, but again, that core functionality is focusing on generic low-cost webcams, so that the other stuff can be added into it. Now, as you said here, could you use both? And the answer is yes, you can, and that's where the smart guys come in, smart folks, because this stereo camera is in fact just 2 cameras. The Intel RealSense is in fact just 2 cameras and a speckle emitter. The Kinect is a camera with an IR speckle emitter. Even your LiDAR is attached, like on your iPhone, is attached to a camera. So what that means is that if you were to take your iPhone or a stereo camera or something like that, then you could run it through standard freemocap, use the standard, close it because it's distracting me, use the standard calibration software for each camera individually, calibrate them into the scene using this regular old math, and then now you could basically, so camera in this world, like you could use this, and then camera 0 would be this one, camera 1 would be that one, and then the depth image that you get out of this thing would be calibrated in the same way because you're relying on the same cameras. Obviously a little bit of work involved in there, but that's kind of the future. Like that's where I imagine depth cameras and structured volumetric cameras coming into play. Is at a certain point there's going to be either in our group or some other group that's like, hey, we want to add volumetrics to this. How do you do that? And then I'll say, oh, I have thoughts, and here's where I would start. And then ideally, again, the code is structured in such a way that whoever that group is can be working on it, and once they figure out a solution, they do the pull request, and that's just part of standard free mocap. Does the distance between the cameras matter? It absolutely does. In complicated geometric ways. Right now, can I do this? Is this gonna fail? It might fail. Oh no. So these cameras are not. They're far too close to each other. Also, it's don't worry about it. Let me turn off the media pipe. False. So start there, detect the cameras, and start recording. Oh, not that one. Whoops. Well, I can still use it. Oh, what's going on there? Something's janky with that camera. It's fine. Yeah. Oh, did I close it? Thanks, Shadow. I have been working this whole time. I'm trying to, like I mentioned several times, like there's been a lot of work going on, and I'm trying to, like, I am endeavoring, I want to start making sure that that's being done in an open enough way that people know that it's happening, particularly as we are now moving into a place where it's moving towards a more functional place that hopefully we can sort of bring more people together on. So I'm going to mention one thing about this. Oh, I don't know why that's going on. There's something going on with something. Don't worry about that glitch. I don't know what's going on there. But these cameras are very close to each other. They're literally attached to each other. Because I wanted them, they're firmly attached so I can calibrate and recalibrate and, like, theoretically get the same numbers, and I don't have to worry about bumping my screens or something like that. But this is too close because basically it means that each camera is getting a very similar view. So trying to do a triangulation, oh yeah, we're still working on that. Trying to do the triangulation from those points that are so close to each other means that you're going to be it's going to be highly susceptible to noise. What you want is the cameras to be sort of separated by more, and that the optimal separation is a complicated question that I don't have a full answer to, and I definitely don't have the energy to jump into now. Okay, this is really, I don't know what's going on there. Oh yeah, you actually could. You could do If I did them crosswise, you could cross fuse it, like cross your eyes and you get 3D, which would be fun. So a lot easier than doing it with math. Just let your brain do all the work for you. Okay, but I am okay. It's been 2 hours and I'm tired, so I'm gonna call it from there. But just to reiterate, we've talked about a new roadmap, which lives here. A new roadmap on the freemocap repo that outlines work to be done. Again, kind of like, this isn't everything, but it's everything that I brain dumped out, and then this is kind of like a mechanism that I'm going to be playing with for keeping things open. Talked about the new release, version 5.3, and specifically the new method to reuse an old calibration by using the use previous calibration equals 2 keyword argument. I talked about the new, I wish I hadn't closed that, the sort of the little proof of concept work I did to add a freemocap option to CG Tinker's BlendArMocap, which is here, which you can download, and you can try that out by going to, what is it? It was github.com/johnmathis/blendar. Yeah, so basically my branch, John Mathis branch of the BlendArMocap, download it as a zip and then install that zip as an add-on, and then see what we want. And then talked about the new proof of concept GUI. Thorn David, I did not see your tutorial on YouTube. I didn't know you had one. Thorn David. Is that you? Is this you? No? If you made a tutorial, then I did not see it. Diffblem. Ah. Oh, you posted this on the server, right? Is this, which tutorial were you, when would you want me to? Oh, it's, auto rig. Is that? I'm trying to remember the conversation. This one? Yeah. I did not watch this. Oh, it's short. Oh yeah, look at that. That looks familiar. That also looks familiar. Cool. Yeah, I will take a closer look at this. That's the trailer. Gotcha. Oh, that's the I see. Here's the longer one. I will take a look at that when I can. I think it's sort of at the point where it might be worth doing that. I wasn't really expecting to like put much more energy into the Blender stuff because I'm just working on. I have like got some travel and I got like a conference stuff to go to, but I found myself like I caught the spirit and worked on the Blender output thing, and it is now. I think it's close enough now that like understanding like Auto Rig Pro and things like that might become helpful, but I'll take a look at it. But again, realistically, I'm still pretty slammed work-wise on other dimensions because like I'm a professor and I've got to go. I'm going to give like talks on FreeMocap to various places, which is an interesting place to be because it's like, oh, I want to make new functionality. It's like, no, don't make new functionality. Make the talk. So that's going to be for the next couple weeks. And that stuff is really important because that brings more scientists into the fold. It's going to help like securing funding. It's going to help bringing other types of expertise into the FreeMocap community, which I think that's the whole game here. Is we're building something that connects animators to neuroscientists and neuroscientists to biomechanics and roboticists and things like that. Conference season. It is indeed conference season. Marcus knows. Marcus knows what's up. But we're almost done with conference season, and then we'll have about a month and a half to myself, and then I start teaching, and so another point to mention is that I'm going to be having I'm teaching a class that's going to have FreeMocap as a core component to it, which means I'm going to be building a lot of tutorials and demonstrations and sort of like knowledge base type of stuff of like how the stuff works and how to use it and things like that as a part of that class, and then sharing it with the community at large. People have been asking for tutorials on how to install and use FreeMocap, and I've been dragging my feet on it for so long now that I should have just done it back when I first thought about it. But the idea was like I didn't want to spend my limited effort on tutorials for software that's going to change. But once things sort of get to this stable point that will hopefully be in later in the summer and sort of starting the pre-alpha version, then I start feeling more comfortable about spending more of that tutorial energy, especially if it's like on that sort of like the core techniques, right? The stuff I was talking with like Who's Your Mikey and about like, oh, here's how you point your cameras, here's how to like look at the video, and like here's how to analyze the trajectory of a hand of a movement to sort of like infer things about it. Building things like Unreal Live Link plugins, working with animators and being like, oh, hey, like, you know, you're doing it like this and that's making a problem for us elsewhere. It's like, oh, you know, that's what we're working with. So thanks for stopping by. Thanks for chatting in the chat. Thanks for your interest and support of this FreeMocap project. And I have to throw you at people. Who do I have to send? I'm gonna raid y'all somewhere. Who am I gonna raid y'all to? Interdisciplinarianism. Yes, that's what we want to do. Thanks, Movement Mike. Oh, I know who you are. I can guess. Does anybody have any friends that they think I should send you to? Like any people to raid to? Because none of them, I don't know any. Nobody I know is on right now. Pools and hot tubs? Probably not. Oh, game's done quick? That's too many people. Trying to find. Is there any science and tech? Sort by, recommended for me. Who's Botez? No, that's too many people.
Tonight?
Shush. Okay. That's too many people too. Mort.
This was.
Oh my god, I hate these. Oh, they don't even let you. Okay, I don't know who this is, but I'm gonna raid you over there. Let me check the vibe real quick. God, this is really awful. I hate ads so much. Don't look at this. Don't look at 2 ads at once. You know, it's bad enough. God, they're so long too. Jesus. Okay. All right, you got glasses. I'm gonna send you over there, and then I'm gonna leave. Okay, guys. Thank you for who you are and what you represent, which is support for a free open source project that I like very much. And in a second, I'm gonna throw you over to this guy, and I'll catch you later. I'll do this again at some point in the future. No promises, but hopefully soon. And see you in the future. Mwah.